Hey, McGraw, good morning.
So, your initial thoughts when you watched and heard the news last night?
Well, I've never seen anything as openly underhanded in my life, and I've seen a lot of underhanded stuff in my days in politics and government. For a year, the task force worked earnestly with a committee of owners, 6 owners, the LA committee, and that's what we were told to do. And we worked with that committee. I think everybody knows the RSA spent about $17 million. Did the architectural drawings, did everything that committee asked them to do. And that committee yesterday afternoon voted 6-1 in favor of the Carson project. That's the San Diego project, and 6-1 obviously in favor of keeping the Rams in St. Louis. And 15 minutes later, it was like the last year had never happened. The rest of the owners and the front office completely ignored that recommendation. And the rest is history. So clearly, this was decided a long time ago that Roger Goodell and Eric Grubman and the front office decided that money was the only thing that was going to matter. The loyalty of St. Louis football fans didn't matter. The viability of the stadium proposal didn't matter. The viability of St. Louis as a market didn't matter. They wanted the guy with the most money, Stan Kroenke, to go into the second biggest market for one reason and one reason only, and that was to maximize profits. That I could understand. I wish they would have just told us a year ago, you're screwed, and saved everybody a whole lot of time and effort. They don't even lie well. I mean, Stan in a statement last night said that he had negotiated for 10 years in good faith with the RSA. First of all, I was there for all 10 years. He didn't negotiate for 10 seconds. And second of all, he didn't even lie well. His lease is with the CVC, and if he was negotiating, it would have been with the CVC, the Convention and Visitors Commission, and not the RSA. So, I mean, the whole thing was just laughably, ham-handedly crooked. But it is what it is, and the result is what it is, and we can't control that. And so the real question for St. Louis is, what do we do from here? And I think that we have some thoughts on that. But going backwards, it was a farce of a process.
So the only team, the only city to come up with a viable plan to keep them was St. Louis, and St. Louis is the only city that lost an NFL team yesterday.
Right, and that's for one simple reason, and that is that Roger Goodell and Eric Grubman, who came out of Goldman Sachs, they decided that Stan, because of his deep pockets, was more capable of making a lot of money in Los Angeles for the other owners than Mr. Spanos was, Dean Spanos, the owner of the San Diego Chargers. So it did not matter that Rams fans, I think they've had like 3 winning seasons in the last 23 years, and yet Rams fans continue to go to the Dome. They continue to watch the team on television and buy their stuff. None of that mattered. The proposal that St. Louis put forward didn't matter. And as you pointed out, the fact that neither San Diego nor Oakland put something forward, did not put something forward, didn't matter. What mattered was that Kroenke is a bigger billionaire than Dean Spanos, and they thought that he had a better way to make them more money, and that's the only thing that mattered. Like I said, hey, we're big boys. This is America. You got money. You're free to invest your capital where you want. But it would have been nice if they would have just told us the truth from the beginning and say, listen, it really doesn't matter what you do. Stan Kroenke is going to Los Angeles. They could have saved everybody a lot of time and trouble if they'd been honest about it.
Jeff Rainford with us. One of the things that was most interesting as you were coming down to the end, sounds like from the reports we read that the task force got a call from the owners and said, we'll give you guys an extra $100 million to close the gap. And after the aldermen passed it, or that bill went to the aldermen, then Goodell said, no, we never said we'd give you an extra $1 million for a total of $300 million. And yet the NFL said exactly that yesterday, that they would give $300 million to the Chargers and the Oakland Raiders.
I mean, the amount of lying in this whole thing, again, I get it. I'm a big boy. If they had come to St. Louis a year ago and said, you don't stand a chance because we want Stan in Los Angeles because he gives us the best chance to make the most money there, we'd have been angry and all that. But, I mean, we're all big boys and girls, and we all would have been, okay, that's fine. But you're right. So the task force worked with the 6-member committee, the Los Angeles committee, and the owner of the Houston Texans team told Dave, you got to change your. Remember at the last McGraw, the deal kept changing, and people were getting mad. Oh, the deal keeps changing.
Right.
There's something going on here. Well, what was going on here is that the owner of the Houston Texans was telling the task force, here's what you got to do to make your plan viable. And as part of that, the same committee said, and count on an extra $100 million out of the league. That's where it all came from. Now, Goodell and Grubman in the front office were obviously working with Stan and going in a different direction. Now, I do believe that the 6 people on the LA committee were acting in good faith. I just think that this league is the leadership of this league is a disaster, as we've seen, with the wife abuse situation, with the concussion situation. I think that the leadership of this league is a disaster, and I think that Goodell and Grubman and Kroenke were going in a different direction. And I think when the LA committee voted 6-1 for Carson and to keep the Rams in St. Louis, I think they meant it. I don't think that they were part of the conspiracy. But then 15 minutes later, and the second thing that happened is Spanos thought he had 20 votes. Well, they decided to have a secret ballot. Well, the 20 owners who committed to him, at least some of them, when it was a secret ballot, voted for Stan. So he got betrayed as well. I mean, the whole thing is just a joke.
So
the process was just a joke.
When Stan Kroenke bought the remaining team from the Georgia Frontier estate, he alluded to this last night, that one of the reasons why he purchased it was the lease. And they keep saying that they were working for the last number of years trying to get a deal done. And when the lease didn't work out, and when the CVC or whoever they said they have the lease with wasn't bargaining in good faith and was sort of leaning, breaking the lease, only then did we feel like we had to go to Los Angeles. Take us through some of those steps for us, Jeff.
I have firsthand knowledge of. I was the mayor's chief of staff and was in all of the meetings, and this was in my portfolio. Almost not a single word of that is true. It is true under the lease. The lease that was negotiated in the 90s did say every 10 years the two parties have to look back and see whether or not the Dome was in the top 25% of stadia in the National Football League. And it is true that there was an arbitration. In the arbitration, the arbitrator decided it is not. What is not true is negotiations. At every turn, the mayor, the governor, the CVC, Bob O'Loughlin, who at the time was the chairman of the CVC, we begged the Rams to enter into negotiations for a new stadium and to meet their needs in St. Louis. And at every turn, they said, we want to go year to year. We're going to stick to the terms of the lease. And if you don't bring the stadium up to top tier, we're going to go year to year. So why wouldn't we bring it up to top tier? Well, here was the Rams' proposal. The Rams' proposal to bring the Dome to top tier was for $700 million in public money, $0 in private money, and for that we would have gotten 10 more years on the lease. Well, that's ridiculous, okay? Nobody in their right mind is going to make that deal. Stan Kroenke wouldn't make that deal if he was in our shoes. So what the CVC, the mayor, and the governor tried over and over again to do was to engage the Rams and Kroenke and his representatives in discussions for a 30-year solution, a 30-year lease on probably a new building. And they said, no, we're not interested in that. We don't want to spend 10 seconds talking to you about that because we want to go year to year and be able to have the flexibility of getting out of the lease. And so not a single word of that is true. And it's laughable because when Stan lied about that last night, he didn't even get his lie right. He said in his statement that he had tried over and over to negotiate with the RSA. Well, the reason we know that he didn't try to negotiate is because that's the wrong party. He should have been negotiating if he was going to negotiate with the CVC because his lease is with the CVC. They don't even cover their tracks well.
How much did the Rams work with this stadium task force? How much did Kevin Demoff and the task force at least converse and sort of negotiate in good faith, talk about things we want and don't want with this current task force?
Well, there was none of that. They did not negotiate at all, and I think you reported, and others talked about the meeting that Stan Kroenke had with the governor. They didn't talk about any of negotiations or terms of the lease. I will say that Kevin Demoff and others did play along. They did provide information. They did go to meetings. They sort of did perfunctory things. I mean, it's not like they completely, if I'm going to be fair, they didn't completely dig in and say, we don't even want to talk to you. But there was nothing that could be even close to being characterized as, if you want to meet our needs in this new stadium, here's what you need to do. They didn't do any of that, including in the meeting with Stan and the governor. There was none of that ever.
So when it's all said and done, Jeff Rainford, I know we've talked on the air, we've talked off the air. I was always skeptical that I was more cynical than everybody else, I guess, or more cynical than you guys. I understand, though, you had to go that extra mile, right? I mean, we did everything we could do. There was nothing else St. Louis could have done. It sounds like Kroenke always wanted to go.
He did. He always wanted to go. And here's why I think why going through this was worthwhile. A couple of reasons. Number one is that at the end of the day, the last time the Cardinals left, really we blew it, okay? And I will have to say this. We'll have no regrets this time. We're going to lose our NFL team. There's no doubt about it. The die is cast. But we should have no regrets. We did everything we could to keep them, and sometimes things are outside of your control, and you have to accept that. It's when you blow it yourself where you're going to have regrets. And we did everything right here to keep them here. The second thing is that we're starting to demonstrate again that we can rise to the occasion in St. Louis. It's happening with City Arch River, and it happened here. And I think that if we use the same leadership and relentlessness, we can address some of the more intractable problems like crime and other things that are going on. And the third thing is that, you know, the people who were working on this, we're already looking to the future. And I think the future is a couple of things. Number one is I think we need to finish the land assembly on the North Riverfront and make that ripe for development. It won't be sports development, but our North Riverfront is a joke. It's terrible. And this started the process of land assembly, and we should finish it. Second of all, if it were me, the money that we were going to spend in the stadium, and a lot of that comes from hotel bonuses and tourism taxes, and it's not fungible to be spent on other things. I think we should make investments in our convention center. We're one of the best, mid-sized convention cities around, and in the Scott Trade Center for NCAA events and other things like that. And then other folks should think about whether or not we want to be a Major League Soccer community. That one's sort of like beyond me. I'm not a soccer guy. But, I mean, at the end of the day, this is over. It's happened. It's over. We have to be adults about this and figure out what are the next steps for St. Louis. And I think we learned a lot of lessons about what we're capable of doing here, and I hope we apply it to other things.
I hope we take that energy and we use it towards good, as you say. And I hope we did learn things, and you're going to be in that room and you're going to be in that conversation going forward. I just hope that we come together, because no one else is going to help us. We have to help ourselves.
Correct. That is 100%. You could not be more right about that. And so we have to pick ourselves up off the floor, and we have to do what is best for St. Louis. And some of that will be about conventions and amateur sports and sports and that sort of thing. But let's take the same leadership and the same energy and the same relentlessness, and let's apply it to other things like crime, like education, like our economy, technology sector that's growing, things like Cortex. There are positive things happening in St. Louis, and let's take this energy and this leadership and apply them to them. And like you said, let the collaboration and the way that we came together. And let's do it on other issues. You are correct. The rest of the world is not going to come save St. Louis. We're going to have to make St. Louis better.
Jeff Rainford, hey, I know you worked long and hard. So from the community, we thank you for all of your efforts, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Hey, McGraw, thanks for having me.
You got it. Candid conversation with Jeff Rainford. Boy, you don't get any more inside information than that. He told you the whole thing from soup to nuts. Very candid, very frank conversation with the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll take your phone calls. What are your thoughts? 314-969-KTRS, 1-888-550-KTRS.